going on, Reef Builders? I'm Jake Adams, and today's video we're going to be talking about a really exciting new product that has really lived up to its potential. So one of the biggest challenges of owning and operating a reef aquarium, once you get past the nutrient issues and the cycling and some of the compatibility between fish and corals, is mineral replenishment. Over the history of the reef aquarium hobby, we have tried all kinds of different things, from adding kalkwasser, aka lime water, to add calcium and raise pH, two-part dosing, balling method, and a variety of different approaches. But one of the techniques that has really cemented its place, especially in the mind share of the die-hard stony coral reef keepers, are calcium reactors. Now, a typical calcium reactor is nothing more than just a recirculating chamber that has a very slow flow rate through it. So there's a high turnover inside of a particular chamber and a very slow flow rate through this system, in which carbon dioxide is added to decrease the pH. Inside this chamber, you're going to have some kind of calcium carbonate media, usually aragonite, crushed coral, or any kind of specialty reactor media is made for calcium reactors. And as the pH drops, these solids will dissolve into the water, automatically replenishing alkalinity through carbonates and calcium directly, and a little bit of trace elements. But the only thing it doesn't really add is magnesium, but that's an easy one to do manually. So a typical calcium reactor uses a pH probe to control the internal pH inside of the chamber, trying to keep it usually in the neighborhood of 6.5 to 6.7, depending on personal preferences. Sometimes it takes a little bit of fiddling to get your effluent, or your outflow of mineral-rich water from the calcium reactor. It takes a lot of practice, dialing it in, a trial and error, and a lot of measurement of the alkalinity that's coming out and the pH that's inside the reactor and what's coming out. So in the last 10 years or so, there's been a very small amount of what's called automatic calcium reactors. And what they do is they completely do away with any need for a pH probe, which in themselves are expensive, require maintenance, and it's as a point of failure to the whole calcium reactor concept. So automatic calcium reactors, instead of using a pH probe and pH controller, they use basically a secondary chamber in which to inject carbon dioxide to have a saturation state of CO2 inside your calcium reactor water volume. In the specialized reaction chamber, there's a float switch that will basically come on if there's not enough CO2, or if the water inside your calcium reactor is beginning to absorb more CO2. So you replace all of this expensive and basically just complicated machinery with just a float switch, and you run the calcium reactor at a slightly lower pH. And so for 10 years, there's been a few companies, that have put together their versions of a calcium reactor, but they haven't really made any improvements or advancements or really streamlined the entire process, because you would have a lot of disparate parts not really working together in some of the historic automatic calcium reactors that we've seen. So Deltec is a really known German aquarium brand who we are partnering with to bring this video to you. So thank you to Deltec for sponsoring this video, because not only did they send the calcium reactor, but they wanted me to talk to you guys a little bit more about it in depth. And there's been a lot of questions, because this is actually one of the first, I guess, cutting edge pieces of aquarium equipment that I installed here at the Reef Aquarium Studio. So I've plugged in hundreds and hundreds of devices here at the studio, knowing full well that not all of them were going to work flawlessly out of the box. And if you look at something like the Deltec automatic calcium reactor, the CR you look at it and it just seems like it would be complicated. It just seems like something would want to go wrong with it. Because the first time I saw it in Germany, Interzoo, right about a year ago, I was conflicted when I first saw the CR Twintec from Deltec, because it's got a lot of bells and whistles and tubes and wires and little gadgets and gizmos, the kind of things that's eye candy to a reef gearhead like myself. But on the flip side, it was also a little bit intimidating, thinking to myself, man, like, how does all this come together to actually work? And you know, Deltec's better known for building like regular calcium reactors, and they're better known for making protein skimmers. And so when I first saw the Twintec, I was very excited, but also had a slight fear that they maybe over-engineered the idea of an automatic calcium reactor. I knew that when I was setting up this machine, I was just going to take my time, go step by step. And although there's a lot of tubes and wires going every which way, if you have a basic understanding of calcium reactor principles and fundamentals, once you follow every little part that comes from the controller box of the Twintec calcium reactor, they're all familiar, right? So it's just the way that it's packaged is kind of intimidating in some ways. But after putting it together and working on it for, you know, just tweaking it maybe that first day, it's really not nearly as complicated as it looks. And I'm telling you, when you look at this B-roll and you look at the machine, there's definitely going to be a part of you that's going to be, again, a little bit intimidated by all the parts and pieces. But once they're installed and once they're set up, it's actually been really smooth sailing. So do you want to know what I did to review this Twintec calcium reactor after setting it up? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I can't tell you how weird that is to have something so sophisticated that promises to automate the calcium reactor function, and it actually does what it's supposed to. You guys know how I feel about aquarium controllers in general. So the head unit for the Twintec is the closest thing that I have to a aquarium controller of any kind. And I've done nothing to it in about 6 or 7 months. I think I installed it earlier this year. And it's been an absolute dream. It's totally quiet, except for the alarm that lets you know that your carbon dioxide has run out. And so that's the only thing I've had to do to this calcium reactor in 6 or 7 months is replace the CO2 tank. And while I was at it, I doubled the size from a 5-pound cylinder to a 10-pound cylinder. And it's just been a really, really great experience. It's supporting a 400-gallon system while running only 10 liters per day through the unit. So that is the really, really cool part. When I need more mineral balance, more mineral, or have higher mineral demands, all I have to do is press a little button to increase the amount of effluent that this machine will produce on a daily basis. And so I'm just at the point where this 400-gallon system with all the corals and coralline algae and different reef animals are starting to require and demand more minerals, because this is the first week I've actually manually added a little bit of buffer and a little bit of calcium before I leave, because I wanted to give a little bit of a berth, you know, for mineral consumption while I'm gone. But to tell you the truth, there's so many things that seemed like they could have gone wrong with the CR Twintec that have not. It has worked so freaking well. It's incredibly well designed. There's a part of me that I'm actually looking forward to the day where I have to open it up to change out the calcium reactor media. I'm sure you guys will ask. I'm a reborn media guy till the day I die. I did add a little bit of the Brightwell magnesium media. I know that doesn't add that much to the effluent, but it's something. And I'll probably try to add a little bit more in the future. So I know you've seen the calcium reactor up here and a little bit of B-roll just in the back, but let's take a little walkthrough of how it's installed. We're going to walk through all the major components and subsystems, and that'll give you hopefully a better grasp of how the Twintec works and kind of where the water and fluid and things are flowing. So let's take a look. Okay, so here you can see my CR Twintec. I think it's CR3000. It's one of the larger models, and it is tied in with this system right here and these 3 tanks over there that are actually totally packed with corals. I've almost never added buffer or calcium to the system except for very recently, because this machine is just doing a really bang up job. So let's start by following the water flow. Let's take a look. Let's take a look a little bit more at the entire machine here. You can see all of it, all its bells and whistles, and I'm very familiar with it now because I've been using it and just kind of observing it, and it's not as complicated as it seems. So everything is controlled here in the controller, and this basically monitors the flow through, the float switch, the solenoid valve, and powering the speed of the recirculation pump. So let's start over here. Here you can see the feed pump, which is a very small controllable DC pump, and you can see it's crusty from half a year of use. It's got a very good mechanical pre-filter, then it goes to another mechanical post-filter because you really want to keep this line clean as it goes into the head unit. Now the first thing that it encounters is a flow meter right here. So as water spins basically a small turbine, this machine knows exactly, or precisely how much volume of water is coming through it. And these are my additions right here, just kind of bring the water back around. I've just got a basket to cover up all the wires and the cord, but that line, it comes through up in here. I just had to double check. So it goes in here. This is the main reaction body, right? So this pump right here, this is the DC pump that is circulating the water throughout this entire system. And all these pipes right here and unions and fittings, these are just quick disconnects to make it easy to take things apart. And these tubes, all they do is they link the pump and these two chambers, okay? So this is the main reaction chamber where all the reactor media is inside. And this is the CO2 reaction chamber, which basically helps with the dissolution of the CO2 gas. So here you can see is the water level and the float switch. This is basically running parallel to the reaction chamber. And as gas dissolves into this, basically the water level will rise, and as it rises it will trigger this float switch, and that will tell the machine right there to dose more CO2 because it's hardwired here and it's hardwired here. So the solenoid actually comes with the machine. So the only thing that you have to bring is basically your own CO2 tank and a very small basic CO2 regulator. You don't need any like fine grained control because the solenoid is going to be controlling everything. And then these two valves right here are only used basically on startup, basically to eject water from these pipes to create the siphon. And last but not least, this is actually a pretty neat feature because this is basically a vent cap. So the machine can actually vent itself and you can tell it how often to vent it. I haven't really done that, but this is where the effluent goes out. So in my case, I have it routed here into a basket of Chaetomorpha macroalgae because one of the only slight downsides to a calcium reactor is it does add low pH water to your tank, which can be a bonus because you can use it to basically fertilize and turbocharge Chaetomorpha and prevent that CO2 from going in the tank and reducing your pH. So this is the entire machine. And like I said, it's kind of a little bit intimidating when you first look at it, but once you get the hang of it, it really is no big deal. And then I think the last thing I wanted to point out, I might have mentioned, is you can open this up and top up the main chamber because it's about this big, and they actually include a little fitting here. It's almost like a little spout that you can use this as an access point, so you don't have to take everything apart to open this to get to this chamber. So right now there's definitely kind of a movement for a lot of companies to build ion-specific probes and testing machines to automatically test your alkalinity and your calcium and automatically replenish those things with dosing. But to tell you the truth, there's so many moving parts in those machines, and there's so many different directions that companies are going. There's no way to know what is going to be the superior approach, and there's no way to know which one is going to be the best. So right now, automatic calcium reactors for me seems like a more logical progression of a proven reef aquarium technology like the regular calcium reactor. And the thing about the Twintec, that the best thing that I can say about it is I enjoyed the experience of using one so much that I want more. You know what's so funny about this thing? I just forget about it. I totally forget that it's there. I don't think about it very much at all. Every now and then I'm like, oh yeah, there's a calcium reactor running in the system. And I have a couple systems over here that are a little bit more stony corals inside, and I've been doing a lot of dosing. I'm telling you, doing the manual dosing route has been a lot more work to try to do this seesaw with the calcium and the alkalinity and the magnesium and getting the dosing pumps just right, and even replenishing the reservoirs of calcium, magnesium, and alkalinity, because the demands are so high. It's just, there's a lot of busy work, I guess, that goes into keeping a high demand dosing system really firing on all cylinders. Meanwhile, the Twintec has been running at its lowest rate possible, which is 10 milliliters per day. And so when I need more in this system right here and the 3 tanks that are attached to it, all I have to do is press the button to basically just increase the effluent rate. And I'm really looking forward to that day, which I don't think is going to be very far from now, where I just walk up to the machine and just boop, 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 turn it up. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I want to thank Deltec for sending along the Twintec, and also you guys know I get really excited about products that really live up to their expectations, that just perform as they should, and also really try to push the envelope both in engineering and design. And the CR Twintec really nails that on all fronts. So it is a German product, so it's got a little bit more of a boutique level of craftsmanship. It is expensive, but for me, if it really, really works and it keeps the reef aquarium experience fun and trouble-free, if every Twintec could perform just like this one, oh my goodness. You guys, those of you that are on the fence, I hope this video will convince you that I've had 110% positive experience with this machine, which seems counterintuitive when you first look at it. So I know you guys are going to have more questions about this machine that I probably haven't answered. Go ahead and put your questions down in the comments below. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the future video.